In the final decades of the 13th century, the crumbling Seljuk Sultanate of Rum had left behind a fragmented Anatolia filled with small Turkic principalities known as beyliks. Among them, in the northwestern region near the Byzantine border, a humble yet fiercely ambitious leader named Osman emerged. Osman was the son of Ertugrul, a respected chieftain of the Kai tribe, a branch of the Oghuz Turks. Osman was in his late 30s when he began consolidating power. Unlike many leaders of his time, he combined deep Islamic faith with military ambition, earning the loyalty of warriors, scholars, and even rival tribes. Osman's rise was not marked by overwhelming force but by strategic alliances, tactical raids, and visionary leadership. His small principality bordered the weakening Byzantine Empire, giving him a frontier filled with opportunity. Osman framed his struggle as a ghazi, a holy war against Christian infidels, attracting devout warriors known as ghazis to his cause. These fighters were not just swordsmen. They were ideologically driven men seeking both glory and divine reward. Osman's leadership turned his tribe from a small, nomadic group into a respected power bloc that could challenge the Byzantines directly. According to legend, Osman had a dream where a massive tree grew from his chest and covered the world in its shade, interpreted by his spiritual mentor Sheikh Adabali as a sign he was destined to build a great empire. This vision became part of Ottoman lore and helped justify his ambitions not just as a tribal chief, but as the founder of a lasting state. In 1299, Osman officially declared his independence from the Seljuks and established the foundation of what would become the Ottoman Empire. This moment marked the birth of a dynasty that would rule for over 600 years, one of Osman's earliest and most symbolic victories came at the Battle of Baphius in 1302. With a few thousand Ghazi warriors, he defeated a much larger Byzantine force, capturing territory and earning recognition among other Turkic beyliks. His warriors wore light armor, moved swiftly on horseback, and struck with speed and precision, very different from the heavily armored Byzantine soldiers. The success of these tactics led to more tribes joining Osman's side, swelling his army with skilled horsemen and spreading his reputation as a leader who could deliver both military and spiritual rewards. Osman's strategy wasn't limited to warfare. He governed with justice and fairness, adopting Islamic law but respecting the Christian populations he conquered. Churches were often left untouched, and local leaders were allowed to stay in power as long as they pledged loyalty. This inclusiveness made him popular not only among Muslims, but also among discontented Byzantine subjects. Osman's use of timberland grants rewarded warriors with farmland, binding them to the state and ensuring their loyalty. His rule combined nomadic traditions with a clear vision for statehood, a unique blend that would become the hallmark of early Ottoman governance. Osman's marriage to Malhan Hatun, daughter of a powerful tribal leader, strengthened his alliances and produced sons who would continue the dynasty. His son Orhan would later play a key role in expanding the empire, but Osman laid the groundwork. By the time of his death around 1324, Osman had captured several key fortresses and built a stable, centralized power that stretched across northwestern Anatolia. Though he started with almost nothing, Osman left behind a principality poised to become one of the most formidable empires in history. His simple black flag, adorned with the crescent, would one day wave over 3 continents. The early Ottoman state was not yet an empire but a dynamic frontier polity fueled by the zeal of the Ghazis and the charisma of its founder. It offered land, faith, justice, and opportunity in a world of political chaos. Osman's story of a tribal leader who rose against decaying empires captured the imagination of both historians and storytellers. It wasn't just the sword that built his legacy, but the vision, patience, and ability to unite a diverse and divided land. The dream of a tree shading the world had just begun to take root, the world had yet to witness how far its branches would spread. After Osman's death around 1324, his son Orhan took control of the fledgling Ottoman state. Orhan was in his late 30s, a calm and intelligent leader who had learned from his father's diplomatic instincts and military strategies. While Osman had laid the foundation, Orhan would begin the transformation from a principality to a true empire. His focus was on organizing the army, consolidating power, and expanding deeper into Byzantine territory. Orhan recognized that conquest alone wouldn't be enough. Administration, alliances, and cultural tolerance were equally essential in creating a lasting and stable dominion. One of Orhan's first major victories came with the capture of Bursa in 1326. Bursa, a wealthy and strategically located Byzantine city, became the first official Ottoman capital. This marked a major shift. The Ottomans now controlled an urban center, not just rural strongholds. With its stone walls, bustling markets, and ancient churches, Bursa symbolized legitimacy and power. Orhan didn't destroy the city. Instead, he preserved its infrastructure, turned churches into mosques, and built schools, baths, and hospitals. This peaceful integration won the support of locals and gave the Ottomans a model for future conquests. Rule by example, not just force. To manage his growing realm, Orhan established a professional army, a move that set the Ottomans apart from other beyliks. This force included the yaya, infantry soldiers paid regular salaries, and would later evolve into the famous Janissary Corps. Orhan also started using coins stamped with his name, a sign of sovereignty. The Ottoman court began adopting more Persian and Arabic traditions, reflecting a shift from tribal leadership to formal governance. Orhan's rule was marked by balance. He maintained Islamic identity but showed respect toward Christians and Jews, helping the Ottomans gain reputation as fair and stable rulers. A pivotal moment came when Orhan was invited by a Byzantine emperor to assist in a civil war. The Ottomans sent forces across the Dardanelles Strait into Europe, marking their first military presence in the Balkans. In return, Orhan was granted permission to marry the emperor's daughter, Theodora. This alliance between a Muslim ruler and a Christian empire stunned many, but it showcased Orhan's diplomatic genius. He wasn't just a conqueror, he was a strategist, using marriage, war, and negotiation to grow the Ottoman influence. By helping the Byzantines, the Ottomans quietly laid the groundwork for entering European territory without open war. This opportunity paved the way for the conquest of Gallipoli in 1354. A devastating earthquake had damaged the Byzantine fortress, and Ottoman soldiers moved in to occupy the weakened area. With this strategic foothold in Europe, the Ottomans now had a permanent military base in the Balkans. It was a game-changing moment, the gateway to Thrace, Macedonia, and eventually all of southeastern Europe had been opened. From here, waves of Ghazi warriors crossed into Christian lands, bringing not just the sword but also markets, mosques, and courts. The Ottoman model of religious tolerance and military discipline made them both feared and respected. Orhan's expansion relied heavily on his ability to manage local populations. Christian villagers, tired of Byzantine taxes and instability, often welcomed Ottoman rule. As long as they paid the jizya tax and pledged loyalty, they were allowed to practice their religion and manage local affairs. Ottoman governors treated them more fairly than many of their previous overlords. This inclusive policy turned enemies into subjects and helped prevent rebellion. In fact, many Christians served in the Ottoman army or administration, a pragmatic decision that prioritized unity over ideology. It wasn't just conquest. It was calculated assimilation, something no other empire in the region had mastered. By the time Orhan grew old and passed power to his son Murad in the late 1360s, the Ottomans had already become a transcontinental empire in everything but name. From a tribal border principality, they now controlled major cities, tax systems, military units, and trade routes. They were no longer a mere threat to Byzantium, they were replacing it. The Ghazi warriors who had once ridden on horseback through forests were now governing lands, collecting tribute, and building institutions. The foundation Osman laid had evolved into a growing imperial structure, and Europe was beginning to notice. The real Ottoman rise had only just begun. With the death of Orhan, his son Murad I took the throne around 1362, continuing the mission of transforming a frontier principality into a formidable empire. Murad, a seasoned warrior and tactician, shifted the Ottoman focus more aggressively into Europe. He made Edirne the new capital, marking the Ottomans' first major city in the Balkans. This move was more than geographic. It was psychological. By planting their administrative center in European territory, Murad sent a powerful message. The Ottomans were no longer just Turkish rulers in Anatolia. They were now a Eurasian power that would compete with kingdoms on both continents. Murad's reign saw the emergence of the Janissaries, an elite corps of soldiers created through the controversial Devshirme system. Christian boys from the Balkans were taken from their families, converted to Islam, and trained as loyal warriors and administrators. Though the practice was harsh, it produced one of the most disciplined military forces in the medieval world. Janissaries weren't just fighters, they became governors, engineers, and advisors, loyal only to the Sultan. This innovation allowed Murad to reduce dependence on tribal warriors, creating a professional, centralized army that would outlast every other power of the age. Murad also expanded into Serbia, Bulgaria, and Macedonia, defeating European coalitions and establishing vassalage through diplomacy and force. At the Battle of Maritsa in 1371, his forces crushed a much larger Christian army using surprise and superior mobility. This victory frightened European powers and showcased Ottoman tactical brilliance. The success of Murad's strategies lay in mixing military shock with post-battle pragmatism. He allowed defeated kings to keep their thrones as long as they paid tribute. This created a web of loyal states around the Ottoman core, each one tied economically and politically to Istanbul's rising influence. The real test came at the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, one of the most legendary and symbolic battles in Balkan history. Murad led his forces against a coalition of Serbs, Bosnians, and Albanians under Prince Lazar. The battle was fierce and chaotic, fought on muddy plains under the summer sun. Both armies suffered heavy losses. In a tragic twist, Murad was assassinated by a Serbian soldier posing as a defector, making him the only Ottoman sultan ever killed on the battlefield. His death shocked the empire, but his son Bayezid swiftly took control, earning the title Yildirim, meaning the Thunderbolt. Bayezid I, only in his early 30s at the time, responded with lightning-fast campaigns across the Balkans and Anatolia. He was a fierce leader, known for his speed in battle and intolerance for disloyalty. Bayezid crushed rebellious vassals, defeated crusader armies at Nicopolis in 1396, and laid siege to Constantinople itself. For the first time, the Byzantine capital was nearly overrun by Muslim forces. Although he failed to capture it, the message was clear. The Ottomans were now the dominant power in southeastern Europe. Christian Europe was beginning to panic, forming alliances and preparing crusades in a desperate attempt to push back. But as Bayezid looked west, danger crept in from the east. A new power was rising in Central Asia, the fearsome warlord Tamerlane. In 1402, the two giants clashed at the Battle of Ankara, where Bayezid's forces were decisively defeated. Bayezid was captured and later died in captivity. The empire plunged into a civil war among Bayezid's sons, known as the Ottoman Interregnum. This dark chapter threatened to undo everything Osman, Orhan, and Murad had built. For over a decade, brothers fought for control and the empire teetered on collapse. However, from this chaos would emerge a stronger, more centralized Ottoman order. Eventually, Bayezid's son Mehmed I emerged victorious, reuniting the empire and restoring order by 1430. He focused on rebuilding institutions, repairing broken alliances, and reasserting Ottoman authority across the Balkans and Anatolia. Though his reign was shorter, his legacy was crucial. He ensured that the empire would not fragment like so many before it. By the time his son Murad II took the throne, the Ottomans were once again on the rise. Cities were being fortified, trade flourished, and schools and mosques multiplied. A generation of administrators and soldiers trained during this period would later serve under the most iconic Ottoman ruler of all, Mehmed the Conqueror. The early foundation of the Ottoman Empire, laid by Osman and expanded by Orhan, Murad, and Bayezid, was a story of vision, discipline, and adaptability. They took a tribal confederation and turned it into a political machine that blended Islamic law with Byzantine administrative systems, tribal loyalty with imperial governance, and conquest with cultural assimilation. Their ability to absorb rather than destroy allowed the empire to grow quickly without internal collapse. What started in 1299 as a humble beylik on the edge of the Byzantine world was now a force with global ambitions. The rise had begun. The golden age was just over the horizon.